I'm Rachel Braunstein, and this is Hacking the Future with Microsoft Partner Network. In this new series, we're here to help you future-proof your business.
So the underlying philosophy, the principle, why improv works, is based on two words: yes and.
That ability to quickly get in sync and work together and communicate in a way that produces results very fast is what we need to do, right? So now you have access to more of your brain to make those connections and patterns and see problems in a new way.
From blockchain to social selling, we're exploring how technology is reshaping business as we know it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Microsoft Partner Network podcast. I'm here at Microsoft Inspire in Washington, D.C. with two lovely ladies, Nancy Watt and Shan McGrail. They did a session called Play and the Power of Creativity. And so I think we're going to play a little bit on this podcast.
Awesome.
But let's first hear who you are, a little bit about your background.
Great. Oh, I'll go first.
You go first.
And I just want to say, anytime you want us to come back, you called us lovely. We will be here in a heartbeat. Absolutely. So yes, my name is Shan McGrail, and I have a sort of a long background working in the tech industry. I worked for Microsoft for quite a long time, where I managed sales teams, enterprise services teams. I spent quite a bit of time working in the education segment. So as it relates to what we're going to do today, I used a lot of the techniques that Nancy and I talked about in our session on play and creativity to manage my teams, to get the best out of my teams, to connect people. So I'm kind of the practitioner of the two of us when it comes to taking play and putting it into a corporate environment and looking at how it drives results. And then outside of that, I'm from Toronto, and I'm thrilled to be at Inspire. Canadian, Canada. And Nancy and I are thrilled. This is our third time at Inspire, and
Yes.
We're having a great time. Want to come back again next year.
That's awesome. All right, Nancy.
I've been looking forward to this for the last 3 days. It's like, yeah, let's do a podcast. I haven't done that in a couple weeks. I am a conservatory graduate from Second City, Toronto. I did their improv conservatory, and then I did their comedy sketch writing program in Toronto, and Canada has imported quite a lot of funny people to the U.S., I think. And then I did a little writing with Chicago, Second City. It is, I love the power of play and creativity and see the practical application of it, where Shan understands deeply how it results in impact into the bottom line and the cohesion in the teams. I take more of an academic approach to it. I am certified in applied positive psychology, which is the neuroscience of resiliency and learned optimism and hope and the neurology behind that and how we can connect as human beings. So I get to work in the education sector, and there is a lot of pedagogical research as to why and how children learn using improv and thinking on their feet and dealing with unpredictable situations. We've recently completed a good healthcare study around it. We have implemented improv to cultivate empathy in medical students, and also a lot of work in STEM. Using the tools and techniques of improv, we get people to communicate better than they do, more than they are presently able to, perhaps. The science, their work, the technology, whether we're talking about the science of climate change or technology or physics, understanding that and being able to explain it and communicate it on a level that is meaningful is important. And improv really works well.
So why does it work? What is it?
Right on cue.
Well,
what a good question.
It was almost like we set her up for that.
So the underlying philosophy, the principle, why improv works, is based on two words: yes and. Whereby, when I am on stage, I accept the reality of what my fellow player has created for me. You know, if Shan comes on stage and she establishes in the scene that we are in Greenland and needing to apply sunscreen, I don't block that, as we say in improv. I don't negate it. I may not like it, I don't have to, but I have to accept the reality. I not only say yes, I say yes and. and I contribute my further imaginative contribution to the scene, and they're off and running. Saying yes is why it works. Saying yes and having that open-mindedness and willingness to be creative and think outside the box, tapping into an intuitive knowledge that everyone really has, and exploring that and playing with it is why this is so impactful.
Well, I was just going to add the other thing I think is really critical about it. What is improv or improvisation? I think about it as making magic in the moment. It's being so attuned and listening so closely that whatever you say, I accept the reality, I build off it. So I'm enabling my creativity to come through. I'm kind of unhooking that internal critic that's like, oh, I'm just waiting for her to finish and so I can talk next. So it really results in that, creating together in the moment for something that hadn't existed before, right?
Exactly. Gabrielle this morning at the keynote talked about the difference between knowing something and experiencing something. And improv, throwing you up on stage and playing out a scene or working out a game, gives you that experiential learning as well as active listening, something that educators and the experts talk about, understanding that listening. On a neurological level, it's fascinating because what's happening is something called neuron mirroring, whereby literally when we are connected, when we understand and we are in you might have heard it about being in the zone, or
flow.
He just gets me, or I can be myself with her, and like we were totally connected. Literally, the brain activity between two people are in sync. That is what our teams need. That is what successful partners need. So with neuron mirroring, literally, the brain activity is in sync. And when we feel connected, when we are working well in teams and feeling that connectedness, that is literally what's going on. And Shan knows a lot about that in all of her experience with Microsoft and driving and helping partners connect with each other.
Well, and I was just going to add to it because that's kind of, what it is and how the brain works on it. But then if you take that jump and now you're imagining your teams, you come together quite a bit in virtual teams, projects spring up, you're going out to work and deliver with a customer, with different people. That ability to quickly get in sync and work together and communicate in a way that produces results very fast is what we need to do, right? So this is why the whole study of playing improvisation has so much application in our day-to-day work. As Nancy was saying, it sparks the brain. So we think about the industry that we're in, right? What do? We produce ideas and we make those ideas come to life. So with the brain, when you're in this state of play and improvisation, it unhooks that internal editor, right? So now you have access to more of your brain to make those connections and patterns and see problems in a new way. So you think about what we do is give people the tools to kind of get to that place. So more ideas faster, a higher level of engagement, more empathy so that as a team you connect faster, you find ways to communicate better, more results for customers, for your team. It's just all good stuff.
So if you're a manager, how can you start playing? Opening up the mind.
Fantastic. So a couple of really sort of simple things that you can do, and we've got some exercises we would love to send out. We'll make the resources available.
Yeah.
But I often think about, if you're a manager, there's a type of play that's called attunement play. Okay, sounds like kind of, that's nice theory, all these big words, and what does that really mean in the workplace? But attunement is, if you think about teams, right? You've got a meeting at 1 p.m. Well, everybody's coming from somewhere else. So I just rushed from this client meeting. I just had this product meeting. I just had this phone call. So everybody's coming in with all these things going on their minds. So they get to that meeting, you've got the next hour to work together, but everybody's thinking about something else.
Oh, God, yes. All the time.
So if you're
Not to mention, most of the time people have their computer up and are actually working on
and
other
they're,
stuff.
they're still doing the thing that they left.
They don't even actually enter into the room.
Exactly. So you don't have the brain power you need to get stuff done in that meeting. So an attunement kind of play or some improv games that we might bring to that is, as a manager, I would do things like go around the room. I want one word. I don't care what the word is. It can be purple, it can be thunder, whatever it is, but everybody one word about what's on your mind right now. And just that simple exercise, first of all, people are suddenly fascinated. What is she going to say?
Right.
What's he going to say?
Right.
Oh.
And you got to think for a second. Yeah.
He said windmill. Why would he say windmill? Right? So everybody suddenly gets connected, and it's very quick, right?
Do you want to know what's on my mind?
What's on your mind?
Absolutely do.
Wine.
Oh, does that ever leave? Like, it just comes to the front, or it's midway to the
Red
back of the
Australian.
mind. Yeah.
Wine and relieved that we've gotten through Inspire.
Well, it's funny enough, mine is changing my shoes so that they're more comfortable.
That's not one word.
right.
Because yours is comfort.
Comfort, exactly. So that's just one example of, a manager setting up an environment to get people connected really quickly. And you know what? You start off in sort of a fun place from there. So there's
Love
lots
that.
of different types of things that a manager can do to open that up, get people connected, and, set out to drive results once people have let go where they came from and they are in the moment.
Nothing happens in the meeting until everyone is at the meeting. So something simple and effective and powerful like that builds the cohesion that's necessary. And then you've got everyone at the table, literally, figuratively. You have everyone there and springboard from that. It is a mindset.
So what do you do from there? I mean, if you ask a question like that, where do you go after everyone says that if you're a manager?
So once you've got everybody connected?
Yeah.
Well, then another thing that's really important is you need to set the expectations or the rules for how you're going to operate together. So as Nancy was explaining to you, rules of improv are yes and. They're, so you say yes, you build on other people's ideas, and you have to listen and react. Not listen and wait for your turn to talk, but listen and truly react. So as a manager, you set up the same type of rules with your team. Hey gang, here's how we're gonna operate. Don't say no when your colleagues are speaking. Give them an opportunity to have that conversation, to bring that idea forward. Build on it. Don't shut it down, don't block it. Let's give it an opportunity to breathe and come to life. And listen, don't be doing other things. Make sure you're paying attention, be in the moment, give them the same respect that you would want to have in return. So as a manager, that's one of the things to do. You set those rules into place so that everybody can be on the same page. Think about how they're going to treat each other, and that just gives you an opportunity to kind of tap into that potential that people bring. There's some interesting statistics around employee engagement, and they're kind of scary. 75% of people are not engaged in the work that they do. So think about this. In most corporate environments, we never have the resources that we need. We're always short of resources. You have 75% of resource that you're not tapping into because people aren't actively engaged in what they're doing. That's a huge opportunity. So by opening up, creating this kind of new set of rules in a positive environment, playful environment for people to bring their best, you've now tapped into a whole bunch of potential for people to bring their best ideas, to be engaged in what they're doing. And when they're engaged in what they're doing, it's not just you're getting the results, but the customers are seeing the results. And there's some, cool studies out there where for every 1 point that employees are more engaged in what they're doing, customer satisfaction goes up by 10%. Right? So
Yeah.
great opportunity to get more done for the customers. Everybody's happier. They stay. Let's also talk about employee turnover is expensive. So if they're not engaged and people decide to leave, that's an expense. That's tough, especially in an industry where we don't have enough talent. We're looking for talent all the time. So keeping employees engaged and happy and involved in what they're doing, bringing their best ideas, that helps them to stay and, contribute more and more.
And one other thing that play and improv does is not only build the cohesion and have that group solidarity, but allows the intuitive knowledge of creativity, something that everyone has, but few tap in a way that is meaningful and contributes to the team. But it is one of the most satisfying things that happens every time we do a workshop is witnessing someone who comes up and thinks of an idea that surprises them. I didn't know I had that in me. Can you believe we did that? It is that, it is truly the delight that they have in tapping a seldom used resource that they really have. It's immensely satisfying.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that's really important to clear up, make sure everybody understands that when we say yes, when we say lead with yes, we're not talking about do everything that comes up in that conversation, right? So it's a big difference. So what we really mean in the work environment is creating an open space for the ideas and the conversation to happen. It doesn't mean that everything we talk about suddenly ends up on your to-do list. And I'll give you an example. One of the times I use this. So you can imagine, picture being locked in a boardroom. It's a big planning session. We're probably 10 hours into it. I personally, I'm tired. I'm hungry. And, this has been one of those, knock down, drag out, people are fighting for resources, all that kind of stuff. So it's the end of the day, and this gentleman, one of my colleagues, says, I've got an idea for you. I know what you should do. And I'm feeling pretty low at this point. I'm depleted. I'm thinking if I don't get a banana or something, I'm going to kill somebody. So it just so happened I was on my way to an improv workshop that night. So I took a deep breath, paused for a second, thought, I'm going to lead this conversation with a yes. So I said, tell me more. And I think he was a little surprised. I think he expected he was going to have to fight with me a little bit to get this idea out. I said, oh, just tell me more. So he, proceeded to tell me. He said, yes, and what if we did that? Or yes, and added this, or yes, and. So I used the yes and technique, and we had this conversation. And here's what happened. Through the course of the conversation, he got so excited. He got so excited about it. He took away all the action items.
That is good trickery.
Not only that.
You're onto it. You use the word trickery.
I am picking this up. I'm just going to keep saying yes, and all my work will be gone.
There you go. But he was so involved. He was so excited about it. He took the work away, and actually, it was a good idea. And we got lots of results out of it. So it was just one of those things. If I had gone with my first instinct, which was, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I just got to get out of this room, and said no to the conversation, we wouldn't have gotten the result that we got. And that's often what happens. We all know, there's never enough time. We feel stressed. And there's this self-preservation reaction, which is to say, no, I just can't take any more. No.
But if somebody says, I get this, can we do this? Can we get this out by this time? If I were to say yes, I can, and I would have 10 times more work. Are you saying in that scenario, it's okay to say no?
In that scenario, yes. So what you would do is say, yes, and I understand this is very important, but let me explain, I've got these other priorities. Where would we like to fit this in? Do you want me to take something off in order to do this? So it just opens up. It says that you're open to the conversation.
It's just at least saying, yes, I can do this.
And let me also throw.
But are you allowed to say "but" in that? I can do this.
Let's talk about "but" in a second. Let's come back. Let's get back to "but" in a second. I wanted to finish on the thought that in your scenario, and I can tell you as a manager, I've managed lots of people in my career. As a manager, when you go to somebody and you say, "Hey, I need you to do this," or "Can you do this?" or you make a request. When somebody says to you, "No, I can't," as a manager, that clicks into your brain as, this isn't somebody who's willing to work with me to solve a problem, right? It's just the reaction you have. However, you may still have to say, no, I can't do it right now, or let's talk about it, or it's the how you do it. And when people have this reaction to lead with yes, it creates a much more favorable impression about, this is a problem solver. This is somebody I know who's open and can work with me to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just something to keep in mind, because that's, we all are thinking
advice.
nobody wants to hear no.
Yeah.
Even though it may have to be no, but no can be, let's work on it, let's do something else.
Yeah.
But it's when you lead with no, there's nowhere to go from that.
Exactly. You can have 1,000 yeses, and then the no stops you in your track. So what yes does is open up the world of possibility. You have that many more options, you have that many more different ways of creative problem solving and ways to define the problem, solve the problem, work together collaboratively on the problem. No ends the break.
Yeah, and to be clear, there are times at work you're going to say no. Like if somebody said, "Can I have a huge raise?" No may be the answer. But if I were to say, "Well, help me understand why you're making that request. Why do you deserve that?" Right? You would feel much differently than if I just said, "No, absolutely not."
Right.
Right? So it's that giving that space for the idea to happen.
So, what would you say for our partners? You've given a few tips, and many of them are managers on a daily basis. You gave one example of a question. What is one word? The yes and. But what are some more tangible tips for our partners to be using with their teams?
More tangible tips for well, I think the big one really comes back to set up those rules for how you want your team to work together. What you want to do with leading with yes as a team. And when we talk about it on the improv side of things, if you've ever watched an improv show, improvisers can get up on a stage with people they've never met before and they can do a scene. They can make magic on stage. And the reason is because they're using those very simple rules to engage. Mm-hmm. So as a manager, you start thinking about how can I create that for my team? Because people need to come together very quickly. They need to address problems very quickly. They need to be in front of customers and react to changing situations
problem
very
solving.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some practice, and it's why we put together a guide that'll be published sort of any minute now with lots of examples from those, how do you get your team on the same page and attunement? How do you use it in problem solving or creativity scenarios? Like a fun one for brainstorming, 50 worst. So if we've got a problem with the customer, let's just say customer scenario, technology isn't working the way it's supposed to work, the delivery's off schedule. Maybe we just do a fun brainstorming exercise to say, what are the 50 worst things we could do to handle this customer situation right now? So
Not the best things, the worst things.
And here's why you do it. You do the 50 worst because often we approach those brainstorming kinds of sessions and problem-solving sessions with that pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to say the right thing.
Yeah.
So people don't bring the right thing forward, or they're afraid to bring their ideas forward. And those ideas may be fantastic. They may be exactly what the situation needs. But by starting with 50 worst, there's no pressure, right? Let's just come up with the worst thing we could do.
Right.
But what happens through that is people open up. Out of that 50 worst ideas, sometimes you get a couple of gems, right? Because you flip it around and suddenly, wait a minute, we could actually do that.
And what's happening physiologically is that you are managing your stress, getting rid of the pressure that is existing there to think of the answer, think of the best way we're going to do this. How are you going to handle him? Give me the solution right now. Swing the pendulum the other way. Play this brainstorming game on 50 worst ways, and then it alleviates that stress, changes you literally, and then you become more open to a different solution.
Yeah.
And to that end, the other wonderfully effective tool of improvisation is building resiliency. When Brad interviewed Ian this morning, they talked about how we are defined well through adversity. And Harvard Business Review had recently talked about how the one defining thread for all companies that are successful is how they deal with adversity.
Yeah. And Sheryl Sandberg has her book out, right? Plan B.
Yeah.
Exactly.
About resilience.
Yes, it's huge. Adam Grant is the social science researcher that wrote that. He wrote another great book called Give and Take.
Yeah.
So resiliency, like any muscle, needs to be flexed. And you can trick your brain into becoming stronger in resiliency by doing these at-risk improv, feeling kind of risky improv games, and you flex it. And sometimes the scenes work, sometimes they don't. When they don't, and you quote-unquote fail, it is not so much a failure as it is a revelation. And that failure is reframed as such. And you are literally building new neural pathways, you are learning how to be stronger, you are understanding and accepting risk in a different way. Fascinating animal studies around play as well. Animals that are deprived of play don't take the risks, and they literally, it's a Darwinian world, and they do not survive. play from a developmental standpoint is critically important, and we need to continue that into adulthood. Neoteny is a word that means a continuation of immature characteristics into adulthood, and human beings are a species that hold neoteny. And it is important that we must continue to play in order to think and create and be resilient and all of that. And now more than in our industry and in the
It's so bad. You know, I just think it's like you say this, and I'm like, I don't play that much at work.
well,
I honestly don't. I mean,
I wish I had $1 for every time I heard that. And
yeah,
that-
I mean, you think about like a lot of the younger companies where they have ping pong or things in the office, and sometimes I think corporations look at them, those are the young tech startups, but actually, people need that, is what you're saying.
They absolutely do.
They
actually-
absolutely
they
do.
absolutely do.
It's just let your mind be a little bit. Go to lunch maybe for a second.
Exactly.
I very rarely do that. Most people don't.
And you know, we talk about that when we do our workshop. We do this exploration of your play history. And what we do is we get people to think about the time when they were 10 years old. And 10 is kind of an important time because you didn't have a mortgage, you didn't have a job, you didn't have, husbands or kids and all those things to worry about. So we were in this place where we were really free to be ourselves, and we had all this opportunity to play. So we often ask people, what was important to you? What did you do when you were 10? What kind of games did you play? So tell us, Rachel, what kind of games, what kind of books, movies, what did you like to do?
Ooh, this is like Miss Gabott's class. Right? I'm trying to think, like, what was
Grade
I?
5? Good.
Yeah, I
Right
think
back
that was that 4th or
10-year-old
5th grade,
Rachel.
right around? I definitely played with boys.
Okay, I don't know if we'll explore this one as thoroughly as
Hormones starting to
Let
kick
me tell you,
in.
as a social scientist, flirtation is an important part of play as well.
It's relationship building.
I will defend you in that. It is important. It gives us the social rules as well. You know, and start at 10. But whether it is
I remember dancing a lot. Doing like
okay.
the girls would get together and we would dance a lot, and I don't do that. I definitely don't think. We would just like watch a MTV video and do the dance.
Sure.
and you'd choreograph
Yeah.
it and try to do it
Yeah,
in
we would
sync,
try
and
it. That's what we would do.
That's fantastic.
And and that's
easy to pick right up too, if you don't mind me saying. You just-
well, and that's a physical kind of play. So the other question we often ask people through this part of the workshop is, what did you dream about being when you were that age? Because that's the question every adult asks.
Yeah.
What do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer?
I was going to be editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine.
Excellent.
But now magazines are pretty much dead.
well,
So maybe not a magazine, but writing
Yeah.
and that female, that's still something really important to me. So
and from
Yeah.
there, it's kind of that exploration of what were the elements of that fascinated you as a kid. When Nancy and I do our intros, we talk about the fact that if you want to find out about us, go to LinkedIn. They'll tell you all the stuff we've done, but it doesn't tell you who we are.
Yeah.
And then we explain how, for me, yeah, I loved mysteries. It was Charlie's Angels. It was Nancy Drew. And for me today, how that shows up is just the fact that I love solving problems. I'm always trying to figure out how to connect the dots. What did somebody else miss that I can pick up that's really important? And I bring that kind of curiosity to
Yeah.
my clients. So this exploration of play history is like, what fascinated you about it then? How does it show up for you today? And if it doesn't, do you miss it?
Yeah.
What could you do to bring it back to have that feeling of really being engaged? And it goes back to, you even mentioned flow earlier when we started our conversation. When we're 10, it's play. As adults, it's flow. It's that what engages us so deeply, we don't recognize we're hungry, we don't recognize the passage of time, we're just so
The best.
involved.
Yeah.
Right.
The opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression. It is a fact that we must have some release. So I fully anticipate seeing you dancing at the Carrie Underwood concert this evening.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
we're going to be reading your fashion blog.
Zero doubts on that. I have started blogging though recently, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Writing is
That
inherently
that
creative.
creativity, that is kind of
Absolutely. And I could just tell,
very
even by the
cool.
way
It's
you're
very
dressed,
important.
right? It's important.
Fashion,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was another reason why I love Charlie's Angels. I wanted to go solve crime in cool outfits and high
Right,
heels.
and you look great, both of them. All right, ladies, well, this is super, super great to have you. Thank you for being here with us.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. It was
Thoroughly
fun.
enjoyed it. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to Hacking the Future with me, your host, Rachel Braunstein. You can follow me on Twitter at RKBraunstein and follow us at MS Partner. Check out our show notes for more information from today's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.